Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Dean Zachary, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we go beyond politics, beyond calculation, and beyond the big two. Join us each and every Wednesday. Don't miss out.
Hi, I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silverline's Wednesday Night Wham, hosted by Scott Wakefield.
Thank you, Vacation Tim, for your introduction. You're looking very casual, very relaxed there in sunny, warm Oregon, right?
32 degrees today, yes.
Just chilling on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
Looking good. Hello out there, internet world, universe, for all we know. If you're watching on Zebulon 6, welcome. We appreciate you. We are Silverline. This is Wednesday Wham, and you are right where you need to be watching this show tonight. Tonight we are talking about our influences from comic books, and I assumed it was how comic books influenced our lives and so forth. I took the touchy-feely direction, and while that wasn't entirely wrong, we're going to talk about how the style, the artists, and the creators affect our work and how we create as well. So, as usual, we'll stay right on track, and we'll stick right with that topic. We will not divert left or right, and we will talk entirely about how comic books have influenced our creative processes. Everything I said before that was a lie, because we're going to talk about anything and everything that interests us, and we want you to join in as well, and we will try our hardest to stay on topic. If you're watching out there, whether live or not, go ahead, throw comments in, questions. It doesn't have to be about tonight's topic in particular. We love all things pop culture and comic books and movies and books and all that sort of geeky, nerdy stuff. And we want to chat, and we want to chat with you. So at the midway point, I will tell you we do have a review as well from Wayne Hall, and we'll we'll be introducing ourselves as we get started, talking about Silverline. And before we get too far into introductions, we have all of our comic books available on silverlinecomics.com. And I keep forgetting to say, we have Silverline swag. So if you want to be the coolest person out there, go over to Zazzle. That's Zazzle or Zazzle, north of the border. And maybe we can get it in some Spanish lingo. But that's Zazzle.com/store/Silverline Comics. And we have mugs and t-shirts and masks. Not Halloween masks, the less cool masks, the COVID masks. So go check those out and support us and look cool doing it. And silverlinecomics.com as well has all of our comic book titles, except for the two newest that finished up a few weeks ago on Kickstarter. Those are being printed as we speak. And if you supported those projects, we thank you. And if you're buying our comics, thank you. If you're waiting for your comics, they will come very, very soonly in the mail. All right. That is my introduction to Silverline. I will probably repeat that again sometime in the next 2 hours. And it is our tradition to introduce ourselves, to tell everybody who we are, what we're doing for Silverline. And all the way over to the right of my screen, we got Sid. She has no video right now.
Maybe for the introduction.
And, oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. For the introduction, it's just my video just takes everything and it kills the connection. But
okay.
Yes. Hi.
Sid, say hi. Tell us where you are. You always
Okay,
every Wednesday win the farthest traveled prize.
Yes. I'm talking from Chile right now. It's spring over here, even though it doesn't look like it's. I'm like with the sweater and everything, but it's actually very warm. I was the colorist for the Trump's comic. I think it's the latest Kickstarter that run during the first 2 weeks of October. And well, currently I am just working as a freelance artist, illustrator, and portfolio. Even though I'm still here, and I'm always glad to come every week with you guys.
All right. Thank you very much. And let's see, who's next? Brent, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everybody, especially viewers on Zebulon 6. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry about the cataclysm. Didn't know. Now, in terms of what I won, I'm the creator and writer on Kalis. The 2 issues of which are in, and issue 3 and 4 are coming soon. And I am also the creator on the upcoming Silverline book, Cape Town, which should be debuting probably in a while, but pretty excited about that one too. So.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. I got to go to cool and casual vacation. Tim, say hello.
I said I am Vacation Tim. I'm here for the Wednesday show, but I have taken this week off, as all skeleton freeing man should. So I'm here on vacation, but I'm also the writer-creator of Wolf Hunter and the normal producer of Wednesday show. And so I'm just here in spirit mostly. I am cracking open a little bit of the bubbly. That's a seltzer. That's a joke, but it's the bubbly.
Good.
I love his music.
Yeah, I'm over in Brisk, Oregon.
Brisk and beautiful. Brent, where are you located? Did you say that?
I'm in Orlando, which
right.
is not chilly and it is not frigid.
It's the Oregon of the South.
Yeah, it is. Just about as contrarian as you can get, at least in terms of weather. So, yeah.
I mean, I want that weather right now. We're at 94.
Yeah.
Man.
As it gets colder up here, yeah, you get warmer and warmer. That's very strange. It's very strange. Haley.
That's really strange.
Yeah. Haley, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm Haley. I am the artist on an upcoming Silverline comic called Bear. and I'm also in Florida, where it is 79 degrees right now. Only 79. So
Ooh.
nice
How are you
and
surviving?
brisk, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Haley has standing permission to not be so polite. Every Wednesday, she lets us all yammer, and she says her piece, and then while we talk over each other, she smiles and arts. So I
Yeah,
keep giving her
go on.
permission to butt in and let us know her thoughts. So that as it stands, keep you can do that. All right, charming Michael Lanning, go for it.
All right, I'm C. Michael Lanning, coming to you from Louisiana, also known as the capital K and the Kick Me sign that is 2020. I'm the mad scribbler on the Rejects project with writer Roland Mann, inker Becca Winslow, and colorist Adelia Gunderson. And that's what I got. Oh, and I'm also a co-anchor on the Comics News Wires on Friday. So if you see this face on Friday, or if you see this face, it means it's Friday. So
What time? What time on Friday?
it comes at 11:11 Eastern time.
11.
Right.
11.
11:11. Yes.
All right.
But for me, it's 10:11, which really throws it off. So
Are you in a different time zone?
I am. I'm central.
I need to look at a map.
You're 2 hours away from me.
And I've been to Louisiana as well. So
I'm sorry.
Florida is actually in 2 time zones.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you think the Panhandle. Nobody talks about that.
Oh, the forgotten part. Yeah. Yeah. Alaska used to be 2 time zones, but then they chunked it all together. So it's really weird because it's a really big state.
And let's see, they're talking about getting rid of daylight saving time here, so I don't know how that's going to work.
That's they already own a college in Eastern Oregon they're already in the future, man. So it's
Really, there you go. There is a state, I can't remember if it's an A state. I can't remember if it's Alabama or
Arizona
Arkansas
or something.
Yeah, something like that. That doesn't
Arizona doesn't. Yeah, because it only existed for like scheduling your farming and harvesting. So in a state where that never happened.
What's the point?
Is Indiana split as well, time zone wise?
Vienna?
Indiana.
I don't know. I went to Indiana recently, and I was surprised that maybe it is, because where I was the same time zone as Florida, and I was like, how is this?
Yeah.
Because it's farther west.
Okay. I'm going to have to look all this up. This is very interesting discussion for all of our viewers. Tonight we talk time zone.
How that influences comic book production.
How time zones affect comic books. My name is Scott Wakefield, and I am co-creator and co-writer of an upcoming title called Steam Patriots. My co-creator and co-writer Rory Boyle is not here tonight. He is slacking off somewhere, being a complete waste of space and all of those horrible things. And I hope he's watching and hearing everything I'm saying about him. And I am also helping with publicity for Silverline. So if you're watching and you are involved with a podcast or some other show, comics or pop culture related, let's chat. We love to co-promote. We love to get our creatives, not just this lineup, but we have lots of Silverline folks that can come on your show, talk about what we have going on, and talk each other up, because when we do that, it's all good in the indie world. And I think that's it for me. So, and I'm in Western New York near Buffalo, and it is also not balmy and not sunny. It is very gray and almost wintry. And I should know.
Rory in the YouTube chat says, "I love you, Scott."
Oh,
hi, Rory.
We miss you, Rory. And your quick changes.
Rory said he'll try. Tonight's topic, and as you can see, we can stay on task very well, is how comics have influenced mostly our work. But I'm gonna, because I can, and I've been given this authority, I'm going to allow this to say how comics have influenced our lives, and not just the creators, but also the characters within the stories and how the stories have influenced us as well, because I think that's how we're all.
I lost audio for Scott. Nope, I just lost audio for everyone. Hold on.
Good stuff.
That's right.
Okay, the
Okay, we all
Zoom
just
is
need to
coming
laugh
back.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's something Scott just said.
See there. All right, the Zoom is coming back, I think.
Oh, are we not? Are we out there?
Let's see there.
Oh, snap.
We've been streaming. It's Zoom, not my internet. So the stream is still live. It's just Zoom isn't connected. Okay, there it goes.
Okay.
I can see you guys now.
Oh, well.
Okay.
We can see all. Okay. We got to start over. I lost my train of thought.
We had such a flow going. What?
Scott, that train is
So, I was going to give full disclosure about Scott Wakefield. I am relatively new to the comic book world in so much that I put a lot of thought into it. Meaning, I read for fun, on and off, but I hope I don't become a pariah in the comic book world. But I was not just steeped in it like some of you guys, and so I want to curate this discussion and allow you guys to talk, and I will chime in as I can. But I do have some input, so I want to open this up. I had a few questions that I asked. I don't know if anybody wants to start. Does anybody want to start right off with what was the biggest influence from comic books on you? And I'm keeping it broad because it can be, did a comic book change your life, or did it give you a goal in life? Did it set you on the straight, something like that, or did it affect your work and say, hey, I want to draw like that person, or I want to write and tell stories like that person?
I can get into some specific influences later, but broadly, the greatest influence on me as a person and what I like to do as a creator is late 90s Marvel. Admittedly, like the worst performing time in Marvel history.
Yeah.
But just they took some really weird risks at the time, and I feel like some of those paid off and brought them back from the brink of death. But the fact that they were willing to get really gritty with some of their stuff, so it was still your average spandex dudes. But you had Vulcan murdering Cyclops' dad. You had Carnage just ripping people to shreds. The ability to kind of be a little more grisly, I guess, or just a little more gritty with traditionally a medium associated with kids. I feel like it needed to get that gritty before people realize, like, oh, this is not for kids at all. This is
right.
Yeah.
I have lots of nodding. Lots
Yeah.
of nodding.
Interesting.
Agreement.
Wait, what time? When was that? You said mid 90s?
Mid 90s to late 90s, yeah.
What time zone?
Mid 90s Pacific Standard.
The Pacific Standard was a gritty time zone.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Really.
So
I can.
I will say, and I know you guys. I just beat the Iron Man horse to death, but that was me. It was late 80s, 90s Iron Man, and that's what got me into comic books, and that iconic image of Iron Man and the Bob Layton, the suit with the arm thingies and the leg thingy, the arm warmers and the leg warmers on it, and him flying along, and it was like the pinnacle of technology. And I know it's comic books and made up, but it was like that's what it just for a 8-year-old boy in imagination, that I that's all I could think about was like Iron Man suit and those cool stories and the stuff he could do. And I am not a good visual artist. I can't. I can look at something and I can sort of draw it. I can copy a comic book, but I can't just draw. But I would draw the Iron Man, War Machine, and then the rest of the Avengers. And I would draw these battles, and I loved everything about the whole genre, which then went into kind of this the sci-fi genre, and then drawing machines and drawing spaceships and those sorts of things. So that the Iron Man comic is really just like what sparked my imagination, and that's kind of seared into my psyche, and those stories and those images and that art style. So if we get to talking about styles that we like and styles that influence those of you who art, those styles are what I kind of connect with.
So let me ask you a question. Did you ever run around with those oversized winter gloves that look like they could be Iron Man's gloves? Ah!
Oh, I did, but because Power Rangers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
I do that now, but I don't wear gloves. So, yeah.
Did I? or do I?
Now we can afford better looking ones. But...
Right.
Yeah, right? Now you get the isotoner.
Right.
Isotoner with new repulsor technology.
Well, we got those really stupid, like the for me they're hand-me-downs, but the wraparound sunglasses. There's just like one band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just run around acting like a Cyclops. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I would do it. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So there was one time I was into Dick Tracy. I used to have a yellow raincoat.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a little harder to hide.
I was one of 5 million other young lads who bought a trench coat shortly after the release of The Matrix.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Was
yeah.
it leather?
Matrix.
Well, I'll go.
It was tedious.
I grew up. I actually talked a little about this in the first issue of K-List, but I'm assuming some of you, one or two of you, haven't read that. In the letter at the front, but I was a huge fan of the Vision growing up in the '80s, and it never occurred to me to ask myself why. Until I really became an adult and was able to look back on that time and realized that the Vision was a very he was an emotional, he had deep emotion, but didn't know how to express it very well. He was surrounded by friends, but they were also so vastly different from him that he probably felt a lack of connection, or at least some level of camaraderie, a lot, for a fictional character, But on the other hand, he also had a very attractive wife who loved him anyway, and it was the two of them against the world. And there was a Vision Scarlet Witch limited series in the early '80s that really captured this really well. And I found myself just reading that thing over and over and over again, and all the issues where the Vision and the Scarlet Witch were in it. And if they were a guest star in someone else's book, I had to buy it. But I wouldn't have been able to say why until maybe 10 or so years later, when I realized I felt exactly the same way as the Vision growing up. I didn't have a lot of friends. My dad was in the military. We moved all over the place. I never had any really strong connections. I struggled as a kid to, I assumed that a woman would never see anything of value in me. I didn't know how to talk to even average people my age. And then I saw this guy in the comics, and he didn't know that stuff either, but he knew how to shoot lasers out of his eyes.
There you go.
And he was one of the most powerful guys on earth, but that didn't make him it didn't make it any easier for him to relate to people. And that just really kind of resonated with me. And the fact that he found his soulmate. Maybe I just felt that meant there was hope for me. I don't know. But for that reason, the Vision and I were just like pals. One of us wasn't real, but it was, And then when the whole John Byrne monkeyed around with the Vision in the late 80s, early 90s, it ruined my weekend. Do you remember when eventually Vision and Scarlet Witch broke up? Because he now had the personality of a literal toaster, and just sustain the relationship. He was pale white, and it was just weird. And so that was the end of that. And I remember I was like, "You can't do that. You must really hate love, dude," or something like that. It's something in my early 20s that was in that. Yeah, it took me a while.
So you must
I've
be
seen
pretty.
anything like it in comics that resonated with me as a person like that.
So you're pretty excited to look forward to that WandaVision?
Yeah, and I've said this before, but if I could go back in time to my 16-year-old self and say, you're going to see a TV show with Wanda and it's going to be just like you imagined, the 14-year-old would tell me I was full of crap. There was no way anything like that could ever happen to something as cool and mainstream as television. So
you can't talk to me that way. I'm an adult.
Yeah. Shut up. And then I would punch myself in the face and lose a tooth, and then I would suddenly be missing a tooth, and I'd be like, paradox, and then so I hope to actually do that.
Unless it's the end game time travel, then you might be all right in this timeline.
Right, hope it's Endgame and not Time Cop.
Right. Or Looper.
Oh,
yeah. What about one of our pencil or ink or color visual artists? What influence has, in the broad sense, if you want to start with the broad sense that comic books have had on you, and then if you want to narrow it down to specifics, go for it.
I can go.
Go for it.
But in my case, it was TV that brought me into comics, and then comics got something. Because I would see everything on TV first, and then I would realize I was a comic about it. And by the time I was a kid and I had TV, they would have cartoons, and the only cartoons that I would see would be the most trending ones on the time. That was the anime. So it was Dragon Ball. It was this strong Japanese fighter characters, and even though they would show some American shows, some X-Men. I grew up with X-Men Evolution. I grew up with other shows like that. But one of the reasons I was felt more in touch, and later on look for the books, was with anime, because most of the characters didn't have this. I'm fighting crime because I lost my father. I'm fighting crime because I'm looking for revenge. There was more of this code of the samurai thing that I never saw before, where the character wanted to do it because it was the right thing to do, because it was for his own happiness, for his own sense of life. And for me, that was just like, so you don't need a reason to be a hero. You can do it because you know it's the right thing to do. And for me, that was like, it always got my attention over the characters that were like, no, I'm only doing it because he killed my mother. So it's just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because I don't want to lose my mom to have superpowers, Right. Like, and one of the characters that got me the most was from another of these Japanese series, where he becomes actually the strongest character in the whole world and everything. But the only reason he did it was so he could enjoy his life and like end his life in the most chilled out way possible. And everybody would tell them, like, what are you gonna do when you get out the power of the universe? And he's like, I just want to chill. I want to be so strong that I don't worry ever again. And for me, that was just like mind blowing, and it just gave me like, characters can be like that. Characters can aspire to simple things. So that was like stuck with me. And whenever I would see characters like that in comic books or movies, it will usually take my attention. It's like they see life in a meta level, than any other else. And later on, I would realize that in comic books, because most of these series have comic books, it goes way deeper with it. So I would always get more involved with the mangas or the comic books of the series because they had much more detail, much more content. It wasn't just the action thing. And one of the comics that got me really into was, if I have it, let me get into my library. I don't think I have it. But there was this old series called Kitaro, and it was about this little kid that fought monsters. And at some point, this animated series was very like horror looking for kids, and there was a lot of death, but like the concept of death. But the character was really sweet, and the monsters he would fight, they were horrendous. They were just hideous, but they were good monsters. They did it because they wanted to protect the world. They attacked people because they were destroying the forest, and that also stuck with me. Like, you also don't need to be a super handsome, tall man to have good reasons, like, to be good. And I have this book. It's from the mangaka. Probably you guys know a little bit. His name is Shigeru Mizuki. He's my favorite Asian artist ever. He passed away not many years ago, but his whole life is like an inspiration for me. He got forced to go to war. He survived, but he got, how you call it? Malaria? He had to survive in the middle of the jungle for like half a year without knowing the war was over. And he was the last one surviving. He lost his arm, his drawing arm, so he had to relearn how to draw. And he ended up making this whole series of stories about this kid who would fight to protect humans and monsters at the same time, and it would always have this moral about the world, which was really interesting. Maybe I can show a couple of the pages. It has a very classic 80s style, but some of the crazy things that he did that would always take my attention was that even though he was drawing with his opposite hand, he could just do these crazy backgrounds and mix them with, let me move this here. He would mix it with like crazy details of creatures like this, and have just, it was an insane amount of detail, but also you would see very simple looking characters at the same time. Let me see if I can. So he would draw people like that at the same time that you would see the craziest of backgrounds. So it was a weird mixture of characters, something very loose and easy on others. It made me realize that you don't need to have a very specific style, or things don't have, as long as you're satisfied with the work. So this guy is a huge influence on me. I have almost every book he made. He's also known for making the manga of Hitler, and you can find it, and it's really interesting because he draws this Hitler as the very silly looking clown, but then he's drawn in the most beautifully drawn Berlin Avenue, and it's crazy. He's one. The other one is this guy that I knew not long ago, and he showed me a new way for me to see comics. Probably you guys know. Because he's Italian. He passed away as well not long ago, and I think 2015. And one of the reasons I like him is because he just breaks the rule of how comic books should be made. He makes his own way to tell a story. He also never followed the rules of how to color comic books. He would do everything his own way. That became very signature of his work. And I use him as a reference for how to get very good ideas for layouts. He would mix shapes with gold to make panels and use just the shadows. That means his work is not very like stole type of thing, but I think it's a very interesting thing. contemplative, for like meditation. How you say it? It makes you think a lot, just to be like, oh, this is beautiful. You enjoy the picture more than the story itself. So visually, as a style, he inspires me a lot. And the last one that I always talk about because I really love him is this guy. Usagi Yojimbo Sakai. And well, I always say it, I like him because he's the clear example that you don't have to make a good story, a serious story look serious as long as the story itself is good. You can make a story still gonna get you and it's gonna get invested in it. Discovering him was a great surprise. It's top one here. And those are my three artists that in comic book that I always have them here. They always make me feel things.
Can you?
I did my homework. I studied.
You did a great job. That was excellent. Are you able to? I'm getting her. Her video is a little wonky for me. Is it just me?
Yeah, Sid's video is lagging out.
Yeah, I think your video is catching up to your audio, and it's.
I am so sorry.
No, it's okay.
No,
it's okay. You're like I said, your internet has to travel the farthest. So can you list or can you put it in the comments of the video, the names, the folks you just mentioned, because that's good stuff. And if people want to look those creators up and those titles, I think that would be very helpful.
So first one would be this Shigeru Mizuki. Maybe you guys can write it down.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking notes, Scott,
I am.
or something?
I have
yeah, okay.
A pencil and a piece
Cool,
of paper.
cool. Here's the first one. Good. So here's the first one that has a very interesting way to tell stories. The second one is, his name is not really big. It's over there. It says Toppi, Sergio Toppi. Toppp.
All right.
Italian. And the third one is Stan Sakai that everybody knows. This guy, Stan Sakai.
Cool.
Thank you.
And surprisingly, none of them has robot related content.
Excellent.
Which is weird. But yeah, Transformers didn't change my life. I love them, but it didn't change my life. Optimus, you disappoint me.
Transformers, I think I said this before. My kids didn't grow up with we lived in the country, so we didn't get cable, and we didn't have really good broadcast television, and for my kids there really wasn't Saturday morning cartoons. So I bought the original 80s Transformers on DVD, and they had grown up with Disney DVDs and this, and so we're watching Transformers, and after these messages we'll be right back, and then it comes back and plays that last little bit of before the commercial break, and my son at like 3 years old is like, why does it keep doing that? He has no concept of commercial breaks, and that they have to play that last little bit, because in that minute of commercial you would have forgotten what just happened, the impending doom. You had to play that again.
You would go to the bathroom.
And son, you didn't know you were actually watching a commercial, but they take breaks to show us actual commercials.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No concept.
The adrenaline rush when the commercials were on. And you had to leave somebody there to tell you if it was back on or not.
Yeah, it's back on.
The 20th century. How little we knew.
We're so young. Haley, can I put you on the spot? Why don't
Yeah.
go for it?
Okay.
Do you
so
remember the
just-
question?
Yeah, should I start like broad, sort
Yeah,
of brought me
yeah.
into comics? Yeah, so I didn't like, yeah, I guess I could say I'm kind of new to the whole comics world too. Like I didn't grow up reading comics really, like I mean at all. Um, but I was like in like middle school and high school, I was big into DeviantArt and like posting art on there and following artists on there. And so from there, I found out about webcomics, and so I like read some of those and just the whole like people make just independently making their own thing, like their own characters, them doing all the art, all the writing and that. And like it wasn't until much later that I decided I wanted to actually make comics myself. I always like the characters in my comic that I do on my own right now. Like I can't even remember like when I came up with them. I've just been drawing them for like there's some really old like bad drawings of these same characters. So yeah, so kind of just seeing other people that were like me and that they enjoyed coming up with their own characters and drawing them and making up stories for them, kind of like that just really just got me in that mindset of like this is a thing that you can do without needing like a studio to like animate it for you or do any kind of, you can just do it on your own. So that's like generally where I started with that, I guess.
Mhm.
If that answers the question.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And
then, yeah, I have more specific ones. I don't know if we're gonna do that later.
no, go for it.
Going-
And I know you said about the halfway point you might have to jump
That's
ship.
true.
So that's
Okay.
okay. Go for it. Tell
Yeah,
us.
so I should, yeah, so I've got a couple here. So yeah, like this really random one. This might be like one of the first, this Adventure Time comic, which like I never even really watched Adventure Time. Like I don't know
Love
why
Adventure Time.
this stuck out to me, but
Oh
I really liked this, and this was like probably one of the first comics that I like bought, and I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna start making my own comic. I should actually like own some and like kind of study them. So I like looked at this one a lot and was like, okay, here's kind of how they do the dialogue and like, and it's really like, it's
Nice.
so it's really like just super cartoony. And I think all of the like text in here is hand drawn, which is fun. And just looking, it's like a very simplified style. Like not all the panels even have shading and stuff. And it kind of was just like encouraged me like, okay, even if my style isn't super detailed and I don't want to take the time like drawing all of this and making sure all this anatomy is like totally perfect, like okay, it can still be like a good looking comic. And so that, I don't know, this one's just important to me because it's like the first one that I kind of was like, okay, this was like kind of the start of my growing collection, I guess. And then another one, I don't know if you've seen this in Mona. This started as a web comic and then has now been published. And I remember, and like I think I was following. So Noelle Stevenson is the artist of that, and she's gone on to work in like animation. I think she's like, I don't know if she's like the director or something on the Netflix She-Ra show. I
She's
think.
the showrunner.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so she's gone on to do big stuff, and I think she just started like posting her drawings on the internet and got big. So yeah, so this is like one of the first ones where I probably started reading it like when it started, and I remember like when it ended too, and like reading it all online and just like going on that journey from start to finish with like a web comic that was going for years. And I think the year that it like concluded was my senior year of college, which is when I started working on my own comic. So I started it as like my senior thesis project, and that's kind of what prompted me to like actually start making comics. So that was around that time. And then okay, I think I'll show two more. So another comic artist that I really like is Jason Brubaker, and here's one of his, I don't know if you can see his name, but this is called Sithra, and it's like a whole big series of it. And he has a YouTube channel where he like does a lot of like, he'll do like streaming with other artists like we're doing here, and like just talking about like making comics and stuff, and it's just really inspiring and encouraging. And he started out like he used to work for DreamWorks and had like a really nice job there, and he worked on like all the Kung Fu Panda movies and stuff, and then but he always wanted to do his own comics, so he eventually quit his nice animation job that's like a lot of people's dream jobs and moved out of Hollywood and now just makes comics full time. I'm just, that's super cool, because I kind of like, I grew up in California and I always kind of was like, I want to work for Disney or Pixar or something, and that was kind of my dream job. And now I'm like, you know, a couple years ago I moved to Florida, so completely the other side from where all that movie making stuff happens. But I've kind of realized, you know what, I think I would rather, because like Jason Brubaker, he says that like he was getting really kind of disillusioned, like didn't like the whole Hollywood atmosphere and wasn't he wanted to do like his own thing rather than making someone else's idea that he's maybe not necessarily passionate about. So I think that's like, that's really cool, because I enjoy like having the freedom to like work on my own stuff and not or like pick projects to work on and not just be like, okay, this is the thing that you're working on because it's your job and you may not necessarily care about it, which so
Roland,
yeah, so that like that, and his art, I should show some of his art too, like his, yeah, another thing about his books, like they're, he always does like these nice hardcover books, and this is actually the smallest one in this series, but like the art just got like a really unique art style. Like let me see if I can find like the main girl, like she has a really like angular face, just like the style's really interesting. And he likes to make the book itself be like a piece of art, and there's a lot of like kind of like prose, I guess, written out. There's like images and that, like it's mostly comic, but there's also kind of like novel sort of stuff. And he wants, and like his like, I guess his company that he publishes his stuff independently through is called Coffee Table Comics, because he wants his books to be like, it's like a nice like art piece that you'd stick on your coffee table and like start a conversation, which I think is cool. I like the idea of like the book itself also being an art form, because yeah, because even though I started like reading web comics, now I'm like, oh, I like physical books too.
Roland in the
I love
Facebook chat
graphic novels.
says he also likes he also likes Brubaker and has Sithra volumes 1 and 2.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just discovered him when he was kickstarting the last book, and there's 6 and they're all hardcover, so it was like $100 for the whole set. I was like, I want it. It's so pretty. But yeah, and then yeah, then my last one, this is probably my favorite comic, is Space Boy by Stephen McCraney. And this one, it started on Webtoons, and it's still going, like it's really long, it's still going on Webtoons, and then the print books got picked up to be published by Dark Horse, which is cool. Yeah, and I just really like, it's just a really good story. It's like kind of sci-fi, but there's also like, you know, normal like high school drama, but without being too like annoying. It's just really like the characters are really like well written and relatable, and then the art's like, and this is just the first book, the art actually like gets a lot better, but I like there's kind of like a limited color palette, and the whatever brushes he uses for the outlines are kind of more textured, which I think my screen is still shared. Like I totally stole that for the brush that I'm using for these lines. I was like, I like the textured look, because I normally just use like the default Photoshop round brush, but for this one I like edited it a bit to be like textured and just that.
It works. It's not stealing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
artistry is stealing. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, I want, yeah, and I love, yeah, and I just love like having books in general. Like even sometimes if I read a comic that I don't even like, I might still be inspired, because I'm like, it exists, it's a comic, and I want to do that too. Make things exist. Like it just, I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I'm just like, oh, it's just cool that there's a story being told in these pictures, these sequential pictures.
That's
So
really cool.
yeah,
That was
that's the
perfect.
most I've ever talked.
Thank you.
Where's my water?
Well done. Good stuff. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it because you guys have. It's neat to find out what's inspired you and what's changed you, and what makes you want to create. We'll keep going with this conversation. I know Brent's not going to stay through the break. I want to make sure he has a chance to talk if he wants to talk. And I want to say, hey Tim, are you awake with those sunglasses on?
I'm straight
still
up
awake?
weekend at Bernie's over here, man. Oh, we're good.
You need your pina colada over there.
Brent, you have anything to say before we go to the review and then into the next hour?
I'll just say briefly that I have actually grown up with comics. I loved the Avengers way before the Avengers became cool. And I started with G.I. Joe. I came on with Marvel and the superheroes, and I read a lot of them. I can't remember when the transition happened, but I really started looking for comics that moved me. And and some of the bigger companies have a harder time doing that because their characters are unable to change too much, and as such, they lean a little bit too hard on telling an interesting plot. And interesting plots are fun, and that's why you can get these humongous crossovers sometimes. But I remember, and I hate that it's so popular because it makes me feel less cool. But when I read Watchmen, I remember being so emotionally riveted, not just by the drama that was in the story, but also by the just the kind of the dealing with questions of meaning, of what's the nature of right and wrong. And I remember thinking, I can't believe a comic book can ask these kind of questions in a way that is still really fun. And frankly, the pictures were pretty awesome too. So that really just is what kind of spun me off of comics are cool, fun, nerdy things, and started becoming like a relevant way to tell a really good story. And I love, even now, discovering comics like Lock and Key, and Saga has some of that going on, and oh man, I could think of some others. Sandman, even. I mean, stories that aren't just interesting, but here's a great example. I really enjoy Mark Waid's writing, and he wrote for the Fantastic Four. He did a run on the Fantastic Four, and they were fighting Doctor Doom, and they put the smackdown on Doctor Doom because that's what they do. But Doctor Doom gets a parting shot, and he hits the Thing right in the chest, so much so it like makes a hole, and Reed Richards basically goes to pieces. He's sitting there just trying to revive Ben. Hang on, I can fix you. Just hang on. And finally, the Invisible Woman puts her hand on his shoulder and says, "Reed, it's been 2 hours." And I remember almost wanting to cry. And I'm an adult male. I'm rather phlegmatic. It's very hard for me to show external emotion. And yet I'm like, now see, I know how Marvel works. The Thing's going to be back. Shoot, he may be back before the end of the issue. Right. And I remember feeling this is what comics really can do. It can make me feel something that I didn't feel before. And in doing that, it had power over me. And I just found that so fascinating. I mean, I reread that part a dozen times. And I'm talking about it today. I mean, we're probably talking a good 10, 15 years ago that Mark Waid did his run on Fantastic Four. I don't know if anyone even remembers it at all. And yet that one scene, just the more I think about it, the more it makes me want to be a better writer, just that I can maybe tell an inkling of a story that has that kind of emotional gravity. So that's all I've got. And I should go to
Well
bed
done.
now.
Well done. All right. And then there were three. I am here with C. Michael Lanning and Vacation Tim. And tonight we are talking about how comics have influenced us. The influence comics have had on us creatively, professionally, and just generally in our lives. We had some great comments from Brent about searching for those great stories that you can. A lot of people think comic books are just bam, pow, punch, explosion, and while those things are great, and that really we love that sort of stuff, there are a lot of great themes and elements within comic books that can really affect us. And Brent spoke to that. Brent talked about looking for those emotional stories and being committed emotionally to the heroes and the storylines. And then when something bad happens, we are affected, and that can change us, can bring us to tears. Not me, not a manly man like me, but other people might be brought to tears. It is a great thing. Good storytelling can affect us, and that's something very awesome about this medium. We have pictures and words that put together perfectly and in good sequence can move us. So I spoke about being young and loving high-tech stuff in Iron Man being my hero. And Tim has talked about X-Men and X-Men of the 90s and how, yes, the 90s for comics was a
rocky,
rocky, wavy time, but they did some cool stuff, and that was the era that affected Tim. And C. Michael Lanning has not had a chance to talk. He has been diligently arting, and we're seeing what he's working on. Tell us what you're working on, and then, if you don't mind, tell us what has influenced you. Like we've been doing, start with the broad, and then get down to the specifics of your artwork.
I can also give specifics on mine after.
Please. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, if Tim would like to go first, I can.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Thank you, Wayne Hall, for your reviews. And I want to give a shout out. I totally forgot that. He also has his own show called Wayne's Comics Podcast. We'd love if you checked that out and liked it and followed it. That's on Facebook. He makes some great stuff, great content, and he's been a great help with Silverline. And all of us in the independent world, we want to help each other out. So thank you, Wayne Hall. All right, Tim, go for it.
Sure. So kind of like I mentioned that as being like the broad strokes, like my general taste in comics and storytelling came from that early influence. More specific influencers, being someone who writes more than just comics, I pull from both comics writers and novelists. So specifically in comics, I'd say Rick Remender and Alex DeCampi. But also in terms of novelists, a lot of Philip K. Dick and Richard Morgan. And the thing I thinking about this, what they all kind of have in common is they all kind of operate, well, except for Alex, she doesn't really operate in this too much, but they all operate in that cyberpunk or kind of loose science fiction conspiracy area.
Yeah.
But Alex, I feel like does this a little bit more than everyone else. Is they all are really good at using the buy-in, and this is something in writing theory. Brandon Sanderson talked about this really well. Is that as a writer, for every page you have, you're given one small buy-in from the audience. You can put one small fact of the story in there, and they'll buy it. But for your story, you can give one massive buy-in, and this is the Star Trek, hey, we have ships that go faster than light. Everyone just bites it because it's the one big thing here, and then we get the next big thing for the next whatever. So Alex Campy's probably the most visually in your face buy-in. Archie versus Predator for Dark Horse.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean-
it's super absurd, it's super bizarre, but it's just like, all right, in this universe, our Archie Comics characters are getting hunted by the Predator from Ridley Scott movies.
If you can make that work, you are an awesome writer. That's all there is to it.
Yes.
I mean, really.
Rick Remender, he did Tokyo Ghost, which is also
Uh-huh.
very cyberpunky, and the buy-in of the buy-in is becoming less and less of a buy-in, in that it's a
Yeah.
corptocracy. Where,
Oh my God. Yeah.
corptocracy, where they the corporations can hire bodyguards and hitmen to do out their own bidding wherever. So you end up getting two really cool bounty hunters in this universe, and kind of dealing with mind control type stuff.
But by media at that.
Media,
It's
yeah.
not even- it's
People are just fed so many commercials that they're programmed to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is definitely. It is a masterpiece, really. My personal opinion.
Yeah. Richard Morgan did Altered Carbon, now a Netflix show. The buy-in of at a certain age when you're growing up, you have a little USB put in the back of your spine that downloads your brain and personality, and that when you die, your USB will get put to a different body. And don't feel addicted to everything, but probably noticed for Blade Runner, which was originally Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Minority Report. I really liked the three stigmata of Palmer Eldritch. Also has to do with advertising and sales. But they're all really good at having these slow burn stories with a massive buy-in. When you think of how those worked out, Star Wars, the massive buy-in, wizards exist in space.
Yeah, right.
But then it's a fast-paced action serial, so that happens like that. Star Trek for the time was faster paced. They wanted to make it a little slower. They really wanted to make the first episode of Next Generation the first episode of the original series. The producer said, "We can't sell that. Speed it up." Yeah. So so a lot of these places have these really big buy-ins, but then are followed by big action sequences. Where I like the slow burn with this massive buy-in up front, and I think that I pull a lot from authors who can draw it really well. Also, seen my favorite game series, Metal Gear Solid, which is just a nightmare of metaphor. But yeah, that's what I take most from my writers, and I use recent, except for Philip K. Dick, recent authors and writers, because I'm heavily influenced by what I'm reading at the moment. And so these people have been reading the last 5 years, and so of course they're going to worm their way into there somewhere, even if I'm not directly copying. It's just that's what my brain is digesting.
So I like that you talk about novels and their influence as well. Good storytelling is good storytelling, and one of my things is I've been working on, and I don't know if I'm successful or not, but getting the most bang for my buck, my economy of words, and then especially in the comic book world, the economy of your panel, to get as much out of it as possible, to convey as many words or to communicate as much as possible, whether if it's with an image or with the fewest amount of words. And one of my favorite books, and I can't say he's my favorite author, but is The Road. And that, I tried, it's
Jack Kerouac? Or Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, it's different. That's On the Road.
Not On the Road.
Yeah.
Cormac McCarthy. Yeah.
Yeah, Cormac McCarthy. Because I tried reading No Country for Old Men. And so The Road has two characters. It's the dad and the son. So Cormac McCarthy throws away said dad, said the boy. He starts a chapter with pronouns. He looked over the ridge. Okay, it can be the dad of the boy. Well, in in No Country for Old Men, you don't know who he is, and that kind of frustrated me. So I couldn't get through No Country for Old Men. So I can't say I'm a Cormac McCarthy fan, but The Road is one of the few novels I've reread. Just because I have so many books to read, I don't reread books that often. But so much is conveyed in so with so few words in that book. If you haven't read it, if you're a dad or if you have kids, yikes, it rips your heart out. But I really, really like it. So what I've tried to do with the planning stages of writing is how can this opening scene, this character introduction, how can I convey as much as I can with is it a line of dialogue that can give an entire backstory? Is it one expression that I can ask the artist to draw that can convey a mountain of emotions, or without having to say something? So that's been one of my goals, is to write and rewrite to get the most out of as the economy of the panel of the words. And the Road is an example of a book that I read that I really liked, because that one puts me through the ringer, and it's a very very simple plot, very simple dialogue. There's a lot of, you okay? Uh-huh. You sure? Yep. You're okay. I am. It's a dad and a boy. So I really like that. I really enjoy the simplicity of that, because you can get so much more. And Haley, I wrote it down, but I don't remember which one. Haley had one of her comic books that she liked, and the art was just a few colors, very simple drawings. I love it. That can touch you in a way that just a sea of colors and drawings can be effective, but just a simple panel with a few colors can be as inspiring or effective, if not more, sometimes. And it's all within context. So I don't know if I explained anything there, or I just rambled on about words and pictures, but
boy, dad, yeah, we got it. No, no, you did well. I'm just messing.
And on the other end of the kind of the spectrum of the simplicity is kind of a complexity. My good friend Rory, who I'm supposed to be besmirching tonight because he's not here, he bought this for me. So this is the Explorers Guild, and John Baird, and co-authored by Kevin Costner. It's verbose, which is not Cormac McCarthy. It's written in the style of early explorers, well, not early explorers, late explorers, or turn of the century, World War I explorers time. It is 760 some pages. But what I love is it is a mix of, I'll see if I can find a page. It's a mix of prose and sequential art. And it's all done in sepia tones. So it takes place between 1914, 1917. And it's a great mix of just written word story, and then the comic art with the characters, and kind of a classic punching and explosions and gunshots and fist fights and airplanes crashing and all that sort of stuff. So the Explorers Guild has been great, and I love the old pulp stories. Just really the tough guy character, the Doc Savage, and yes, he is kind of a Superman that can't fly without the superpowers, but he's one of those guys that can memorize anything. He's a scientist, a musician, can shoot a gun, can ride a horse, can fly a plane. And that is a little corny sometimes, but it's just fun storytelling. And those sorts of stories inspire me as well, to just write those classic hero stories that are just fun. And I like those stories as well.
So how can I ask a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I'll just sit here and draw then.
You hush.
Back to the art
for it.
corner.
Ask away.
So in these things, like the road and so on, and same thing for you, Tim. How are these affecting the stories that are coming up in Silverline that y'all have doing?
I am straight up writing a spy novel. It's very, it's a spy story. It's set in a can, so it has to be kind of a slow burn. Otherwise, if you're in the same room as the bad guy and you know it's the bad guy, it's a very short story. So I have to figure out ways of essentially throwing the hero into what he thinks is the right room, only for him to realize it's not the right room. I tried doing something a little different, which is a little more of the big buy-in, which is it's not really spoilery. It's kind of, I guess, if people are looking for it, maybe it's a reason to buy the comic. But the villain is on page pretty early, and so it's up to the reader to find them. Actually,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been more of a horror writer type person. I haven't really done much action stuff. It's always been either traditional literature, where it's just a man staring out a window until he thinks about something, or something horror based, but it's very slow burn. I feel like that's a taking from the people that I've read. But I like I'm growing more into the tone that I want, which is a little more grisly, like what I got from the '90s comics, where having a spy garrote someone, having these action sequences end in shootouts or fistfights or whatever.
Right.
And I'm not getting into a deal because we are PG-13 press, but in my other writing, things do get, I talk in detail about fragments of skull that get blown out by a high caliber handgun. And so combining that that 90, like, screw the censor, let's get really weird with it, as well as the slow burn, big buy-in conspiracy type writing. That's so this is not as grisly. There are some really cool moments, I think, in terms of murking people or action sequences. But it is there's a bit of a buy-in there, as well as the slow burn element to it. And hopefully in the future I can do more. And if we do get like an R-rated imprint, maybe I can take something really grisly over there.
With my the action influences, I do want to have in Steam Patriots. I want to have a good mix of it's the Revolutionary War. There's going to be battles with cannons and muskets and bayonets and all that sort of stuff. But I don't want to be that the entire focus by any means. I want it to be these scenes, these short scenes, but I want my characters to be interesting. And so, like I was saying, with the economy of words and getting the most out of it, I want to give their story without it being overt exposition. I want their dialogue to be good, and I want it to be believable, and I want them to be multi-dimensional, because a lot of times you'll get a war story, and it's fine. Like if it's just, you can do a good guy, bad guy. But really with the American Revolution, it was a tough call for a lot of people. It wasn't like England bad, colonies good. It was, holy crud, if we give up England, that's a big problem for us, because we're a colony of England, England's, and so we'll have characters who are a little torn, and they can't just easily pick sides. And yes, it's a steampunk story. It's going to be a little action adventure-y with steam engines and that sort of stuff. But I want it to be a good mix of what the real war or what the real struggle would have been, and but then a mix of great kind of a little bit of a high adventure story as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been waiting for it since I've gotten to Silverline. So
it'll happen. It's coming. I have other stories in mind as well, as we all do. So I love the idea of really just kind of the action adventure with a hero, and the Tintin stories, and that the movie that came out a couple years ago was fun. I liked it. It wasn't critically acclaimed, but it was fun. There was a ship, there was a jeep, there was an airplane, there was motorcycles, there was punching, there was explosions. It was a little cheesy.
It had that Indiana Jones feel that you kind of you miss.
Also,
they don't have so much anymore.
I do think it's really kind of cool and also kind of serendipitous that without really any major planning, we have two historical based fiction pieces coming out. When one alt history action adventure, one secret history spy thriller. I think it's kind of cool. That's kind of that lined up.
Yeah. I love that. I've got another idea for kind of a colonial, or not quite colonial, 1800s America story. I would love if the Steam Patriots world could keep growing, because there's so much cool stuff. And this is where I geek out on history, is just like people don't know about the 1800 and Thomas Jefferson and the Barbary Wars and going in Tripoli and all that sort of stuff. And then War of 1812 was pretty crazy too. And the things like when the Constitution blew up a British ship, and I can't think of the name of it, but it was like the first time America, after the Revolution, the American Navy kicked some butt, and that changed so many things. And then the War of 1812 and like Battle of Lake Erie and all this sort of stuff. I love all that stuff. So there's so much material. I wish I could just, I wish I was a zillionaire and could just keep making the story, and have people work on it, because I've got all these ideas for it. And anybody who makes comic books that's not Marvel or DC, the woes of creating a story. And if I could draw, oh man, my life would be completely different. But alas, I'm stuck sending my words to somebody to turn into pictures, and they want to get paid. It's people with their
Wait,
money.
you can get paid for this?
Was I not supposed to mention that?
See, we made the mistake of becoming staff, so we just get the monthly Del Taco burrito, and that's it.
I don't have any here, so I get mine in the mail. What's the...
it's all hard by the time it gets in.
Yeah. If I could create all the stories, man, it'd be great. Yeah. There's so much material, and Tim, you're pulling from a World War II story, and that's another endless well. If you find that little kernel.
Yeah, and it's also a thing that I didn't know until recently. It was the secret economic war in Britain at the time. That is believed that there was north of 5 or 6 German spies in England in positions of government during the time of the war, and so that's ripe for spy hunter material.
Yes. And what was the movie? This is not quite what you're saying. It was at the man
in the High Tower.
No. It's a movie I think from the 60s. It's based on they throw a it's a dead body, but they dress him up as a pilot with orders in his pocket. The Man Who Never Was.
Oh yeah.
Oh okay.
It's a great movie, and it's because it's one of, and I'm sure because of the movie, it's a movie. But it's one of those great spy movies where right up to the end, it all could be lost, and that's another story. That element, I love those, and that's kind of what I want with Steam Patriots a little. The hero against the world. I love those stories that like all could be lost, and it's everybody against you. I mean, kind of like The Fugitive, you know. I don't know. I saw that movie when it was in the theater, so I don't know if that one holds up, but I like that movie.
It does for me. I haven't seen it since then either. So,
The Man Who Never Was, I think. Let's see. Yes, 56. The Man Who Never Was, espionage thriller. It's a good one. I love all that stuff. But yeah, it's history is so cool when you can find those little nuggets, and you can really, because I mean, just like movies, we get it's not espionage, but it's a great story. The King's Speech, or what was the other speech one with Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill?
Darkest Hour.
Yeah.
It's not it's not the whole war. It's not a battle. It's one little slice, and that story is told in amazing ways. So I love that stuff. I love it.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the movie either, but the one with Alan Turing, or Benedict Cumberbatch who playing Alan Turing.
yeah.
It's the story of World War II as told through a science camp.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it? The something game. Imitation game.
Imitation game, yeah, because they're trying to. They broke the Enigma code by imitating it, essentially. Yeah. So it's.
Good stuff. Mr. C. Michael Lanning, who influences you in your art styles? And I say styles plural because I've noticed you do a good job of a mix of styles.
Let's see. I started with comics at the late 80s, early 90s. So I was in middle school, and as much as I can remember now, when the big Image took off. Mm-hmm. In fact, I remember McFarlane still doing Spider-Man, and Venom was coming out and all that. Right before that, it was gritty, but it hadn't gotten to the point that Tim was talking about yet. It was getting there, but it hadn't. Mm-hmm. So, that had a lot of influence on me. I do like Todd McFarlane. Not necessarily back then, his art was awesome to a 12-year-old. When you go back and you look at it, you go, wow, he got away with a lot. And so Roland likes to call him the rock star. So, you had a lot of the rock star. You had Jim Lee, and I was never really a Jim Lee fan, honestly, or Rob Liefeld for that matter. Though I think he gets a little too much flack, Liefeld does, than he really deserves, but still. So you had all that, the superstars at that point in time, Mark Silvestri and so on. But one guy that stood out to me at that time, and it come out, was the Generation X, which was who? Scott Lobdell, and of course Chris Bachalo. And I think it's Scott Lobdell. Am I saying that right? I can't remember the writer. It's not important. Anyway. Oh, all right. Sorry, guys. But Chris Bachalo did a lot. In fact, I have this right here. And this one picture has been a huge influence on my style since the beginning. And it's this right here. This is from back in the Age of Apocalypse times. You see, it's a Generation Next. And it was probably some of his best work at the time. And so that was a real big influence there. And of course, you don't just draw from one person when you're an artist, or a writer for that matter. I'm so insulting to y'all. I'm so sorry. I know what it's like to be a writer. I'm not a good one, but I know what it's like. So just those kind of curves. I like those movements and everything. Then fast forward a few years into the gritty times, as we'll call them. And I had one of the emerging artists at the time. He was around at the same time, but you had Humberto Ramos, and you could see this is back in 99, I think 98, 99, and just see some of the stuff you could see. I'm kind of probably telling on myself some of this stuff. I don't know why it is back then this stood out as much as it did. And it's funny because when you look at these guys now, the way that they do something, you could tell, like, for instance, that's some really big eyes. I don't know, but I liked it back then, I guess.
Yeah.
So I like it now. But he's actually grown as an artist in the over 20 years. Golly, that just really hit me. And the 20 years that he's been an artist, the same thing goes for Jim Lee. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Jim Lee. He had a lot of lines, but he's really grown even as an artist. There was something about his faces I didn't like. So fast forward that. So when I got back into drawing again, I don't know, about 5-6 years ago, I decided that I was going to take the David Finch workshop thing. I can't remember what it's called. GNOMON. Gnomon workshop. Anyway, it's a workshop of different artists doing different things. And he had a class on there, and it was expensive at the time. Now he gets to put everything on YouTube for free. And I'm like, golly, now you're like 6-7 years too late, David.
Right.
After I pay $40 a month. But anyway.
Yep.
So I learned from that. So that's why you kind of get those shapes and everything, and like learning how the superhero anatomy. And I wish I didn't take it when I did, because there's a lot to learn about drawing before you get to that point of the anatomy and everything. Because I really like shapes. You can see like the roundness here on this guy. This is I guess to tell you this is Dyer Louse of the he's a villain in the Rejects comic I'm working with coming up. And he could, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't tell you, but he could control his lice. So
that's
all right.
That's a top tier power.
Yeah,
That's great.
Say, if you're gonna fight the Rejects, you might as well have something special.
we needed him last week.
But so you can see that kind of style, but then also come a little bit later, and then I came across this guy, Rob Guillory, and Chew. And what's interesting about this, Rob is the first person, he's also Louisiana boy. He lives in Lafayette, which is about an hour from here. And I like this style. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't complex. It got the story across, but it gave a feeling. And I think this would probably be the time that I realized art isn't just the details. In the details, it's in the atmosphere of what's being portrayed. And what's interesting is when I showed him my portfolio and had some stuff in there that was kind of, was real perspective. And he made the statement about how, he knows the rules of perspective, how the buildings look in distance, for anybody that's watching that's not familiar with it. How they look how something looks in the distance, or, it's not how wide it is and everything. How it's getting smaller and towards the horizon. But he said he knows the rules of perspective. He went to art college and everything, but he follows them very, very loosely. And that meant, like, you can see his buildings here, you could see it's perspective based, but they're not frigid, I guess you could say. Which, if you do that kind of thing, that works too. But that really opened up to a lot of things for me to say, hey, there's art is subjective. You always hear people say art is subjective. I like to say art is subjective. Anatomy is not. Because you see a lot of people put a muscle down, but it's like, art's subjective. But it really kind of, once you know those principles, and you know those on how to do something, of course, I'm sure as writers, y'all have heard that statement before, that learn the rules so you know how to break them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the same thing works with art too.
Yeah.
So it's, I can't remember who said it, but art is about not knowing what to add, but what to take away.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's one of the main things. So,
and anyone watching or listening wants to get that story in written form, see Michael Lanning put that in our craft series early in the year on the Silverline website.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I really kind of doubled down on is trying to get that form.
Yeah.
And understanding that form. What's that convey? Like this little guy right here, he doesn't look like he looks happy, but not for the right reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Impish.
Yeah, that's I forgot who said this, but someone said the nice thing about being a writer, this does parallel to being an artist, I believe. The nice thing about being a writer is you can just say something happens and it happens.
Right.
And if someone has a question, if your editor comes back to you, he's throwing a throwaway line, like that's why. It's because that guy said it has to happen that way.
Right.
Well, I'm sure as an artist, you can draw something somebody and you're like, oh, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Yeah.
What was that? Who was talking about that the other day? Was like with an Iron Man. It said, "Hey, Tony Stark did it in the cave."
Yeah.
Somebody said it.
Yeah.
That was the Iron Man 1. That was the solution. They don't try to explain the art
Right.
or how repulsors work. He just says, "Oh, I'm not Tony Stark," and
there it is.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm using for the technology. I'm not gonna explain how the boiler carriages work in Steam Patriots. They're gonna work. And if you want to get into that, like it's the Mystery Science Theater. If you wonder how they eat and breathe other science facts.
Yep.
Just say to yourself, it's just a comic.
Just relax.
Yep.
Yeah.
I made the unfortunate error in Wolf Hunter in that there's one moment where I had to do the deep dive to figure out why something can happen. It's like, why can't they just search everything? I'm like, well, okay, so there's this British law that got passed 1 year prior, and then this subsection of the article.
Yeah. I go down the history rabbit hole with Steam Patriots, and I have to stop because no one needs to know.
Oh, lost audio on Scott again. That's unfortunate. Connection is still stable, so it's just Zoom. Let me.
Oh, he muted you.
There we go. Okay. There it is. All right.
That's one way to take care of it.
Yep. I'm just trying to reset something. So by muting Scott, I can now hear C. Michael Lanning.
Oh, okay.
So I'm asking to unmute Scott. Scott, you can now unmute yourself if you wish to, I believe. There we go. All right.
Good. That string of expletives should not have been on the internet. I forget what I was. Oh, the rabbit hole of history. People don't need to know the how the Stamp Act affected my story. If they want to learn that, I'd love to point them toward that with the story and make them interested. Make them interested. But yeah, I'm sure you do the same thing.
There's some things where it's like, well, why is this thing happening? Well, the conductor has a timetable.
Yeah, right. Wait. But it'd be kind of, and you've read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh yeah.
Well, oh my gosh! Look, the novelist. I didn't need to know how to make a scale replica.
Right.
Well, were we talking about Swiss Family Robinson and how the dad knows everything in the book, not the Disney movie, but the book. He knows how to render the rubber tree plant. He knows how to carve rocks. He knows astronomy. He knows the weather. He knows incredible amount of knowledge. And maybe people were just that smart back then and we're a bunch of dullards. But I really felt it was hard to believe. But it's a fun story. But yeah, he knows. Well, just like Doc Savage, the pulp comic. He can do everything. James Bond too. Sometimes like, why would James Bond know that?
Yes,
he's just a dude that can shoot a gun. Why would he know botany or biology? Okay, all right. We're flying off the rails here. It's 10:57 here on the East Coast. I think it's time to wrap up. We have been discussing how comics have affected us, both our lives, our emotions, our very souls and also our creative side, how we create our stories and how we write them and draw them and how they affect our storytelling, our techniques, and our visual arting as you're watching C. Michael Lanning there create a impish villain for an upcoming series. Thank you, folks, for being out there. Let's say goodnight. It's just three of us. I'll start. My name is Scott Wakefield, and I am the co-creator and co-writer of Steam Patriots, an upcoming title for Silverline, and it is at Steam Patriots on Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you want to share the love and talk about Silverline and talk about your comic books, if you have a podcast or some such that's similar, reach out to me and we can discuss promoting your projects and promoting ours, because we all are in this indie world together. See Michael Lanning, go for it. Say goodnight.
Good night. See Michael Lanning. Check me out at Facebook. See Michael Lanning. Of course, Twitter. See Michael Lanning. Drop the G. Add a 2. I do have an art page, but send me the befriend me on Facebook, and I'll send you an invitation. So
it's good. And where are they going to find you on Friday?
You check me out on Comics Newswire. It's by the Comic Book Advocate. You can look at comicbookadvocates.com or on YouTube. It probably you could probably even look it up on Indie Vault for that matter. So
perfect. Thank you, sir. Vacation Tim.
I am Tim. I'm the associate editor at Silverline, producer of the Wednesday show, and writer/creator of Wolf Hunter. I'm also on vacation all this week, so don't try to get a hold of me. But I am on all the social media at TimTKWriter. I'm on TikTok at Tim Doesn't TikTok, where I have recently found my home in punk rock literature TikTok, the hybrid of talking about books and talking about punk rock, and it is a beautiful place indeed. I am also here on Twitch, where I'll be going live in a little bit with some Destiny, and that is at AgroBacon, AGGRO, bacon, one word. Mahalo.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to the rest of our Wednesday Wham folks who had to leave. And for those of you who couldn't be here, we miss you. We love you. And for those of you out there watching and participating and commenting in the chat, thank you. We love you too. We appreciate you being here. Don't forget, there's a Sunday show, 9 p.m. Eastern. There's a Monday show, 9 p.m. Eastern. All of our Silverline creatives are out there chatting, and you can get to know them. If you're not watching this live, still feel free to comment, and we will try to get back to those. If you've got questions, always like, share, follow, share away, and we appreciate you for your support. That is it. Good night, and make mine Silverline. See you guys.